Welcome to another episode of the Part 145 EASA training from Phoenix Way Academy.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, and I'm Sam. Well, in this deep dive, we're going to unpack some foundational elements of Part 145 approval. We'll be covering the topic of 145.10 scope, 145.A.15 application for an organization certificate, and 145.20 terms of approval and scope of work.
Exactly. Our mission today is really to make these crucial regulations clear, giving you the insights you need for, well, getting or keeping your Part 145 approval. We'll break down each clause, offer some analysis, and, try to connect them to real-world situations.
So get ready to understand not just what the rules are, but also why they're in place and what they actually mean for your operations. This is especially key if you're part of a smaller organization or maybe dealing with different kinds of maintenance.
Right.
Okay, let's dive in then. First up, 145.10. This really lays out the fundamental scope of what a Part 145 approved organization is all about.
That's right. The text itself states, this section establishes the requirements to be met by an organization to qualify for the issue or continuation of an approval certificate for the maintenance of aircraft and components. What's interesting here is that scope isn't just about, what you can do. It's really about the core requirements for even existing as an approved maintenance organization under Part 145. It's kind of the gatekeeper. For initial approval, yes, but also for maintaining that privilege. It really emphasizes consistent compliance.
It's a bit like having a professional license, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's not just about passing the initial test. You have to continuously uphold the standards to keep that license valid. So for an organization, this means every single repair, every inspection has to stick to these underlying requirements. That's how you ensure continued approval.
And airworthiness, ultimately.
Right. And to really grasp that scope, we need to break down the different types of maintenance.
Yes, and AMC 1-to-1 45.A.10 gives us those critical definitions. It distinguishes between line maintenance and base maintenance. These are fundamental categories. So AMC 145.A.10a says, line maintenance refers to limited maintenance for the aircraft suitable to be carried out whilst the aircraft remains in the air operation environment. It goes on to list examples like troubleshooting, defect rectification, component replacement, even engines and propellers using external test equipment if needed. Also, tasks that detect obvious issues without deep inspection, checking things visible through quick access panels, and simple repairs or mods. So this clarifies that line maintenance is really about speed and operational readiness. It's focused on tasks that keep the aircraft flying with minimal disruption, often done right at the airport gate or stand. The key words are limited and operational environment.
Yeah, you can picture that. Like a commercial airliner with a minor nav light issue during a quick turnaround. A line maintenance team could troubleshoot and replace that component right there on the tarmac. Or maybe spotting a small oil leak visible through an access panel that's typically a line maintenance job, right? Aimed at a quick fix to keep things moving.
Precisely. Then AMC 145.A.10b defines base maintenance very simply. Base maintenance refers to any maintenance for the aircraft other than line maintenance. It's succinct but powerful. If it's not line maintenance, it falls into the base maintenance category. And that implies something more structured, often longer, more resource-intensive, usually done in a dedicated hangar.
Like the big schedule checks, the C checks or D checks we hear about.
Exactly.
Where they practically strip the aircraft down for deep inspections, structural repairs, major overhauls that needs proper facilities and takes time. Classic base maintenance.
Spot on. Now, AMC 145.A.10c addresses how organizations should tell the difference. It says, organizations maintaining aircraft should have a procedure to determine whether the tasks or groups of tasks to be carried out fall under the line maintenance or base maintenance scope, with due regard to the expected duration, number and type of tasks, shifts and disciplines involved, work environment, etc. So this raises a key question. How do you differentiate? It's not always totally clear-cut. This clause mandates a clear internal procedure. You need to consider practical things. How long will it take? How many people? Where will it be done? This ensures safety and, well, that resources are used properly.
Makes sense. A smaller regional airline might say an engine bore scope inspection is line maintenance. If it's quick, maybe only needs a couple of technicians. But for a bigger, more complex inspection on a different plane, it might need a whole shift in a hangar, which pushes it into base maintenance territory. So that procedure is vital for making consistent calls.
Absolutely vital. And then AMC 145.A.10D gets specific about progressive or equalized maintenance programs. It states, maintenance tasks of aircraft subject to progressive or equalized maintenance programs should be individually assessed to ensure that all the tasks within the particular check can be carried out safely and to the required standards at the designated line maintenance station. This addresses programs that break down big checks into small, more frequent chunks. The challenge is ensuring these bite-sized tasks, which might look like line tasks, can actually be done safely and thoroughly in a line environment. You have to maintain the same rigorous standards as if they were done in a base check.
Right, I've heard of those. Some older aircraft might use a progressive check system. So the organization has to be sure that if, say, a wing spar inspection is part of that progressive check done at a line station, they have all the tools, the lighting, the right people available. They need to meet the same quality standards as a full base check. That's crucial for airworthiness.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so summing up line and base. Line maintenance is about those quick fixes to keep planes flying. Base maintenance is for the deeper, more extensive work. And crucially, your organization needs solid procedures to categorize tasks correctly, especially with those progressive programs, always keeping safety and compliance front and center.
Well put. Now let's zoom in slightly. How do these requirements adapt for small organizations? GM1, that's Guidance Material 1, for 145.10 offers some specific insights here. This section is really about how smaller outfits can realistically meet the intent of Part 145, offering some practical alternatives.
This is interesting for small businesses.
Yeah.
GM1, 145.8.10, talks about organizations that employ only one person who does certification and other functions. It says this setup can be approved, but it's limited to specific ratings. Things like Class A2, base and line maintenance for small piston airplanes, up to 5,700 kilograms MTOM. Class A, 3 for single-engine helicopters under 3,175 kilograms MTOM. Class A4 for certain other aircraft. B2 for smaller piston engines. Class C components. And D1 NDT. So it acknowledges the reality of these one-person operations in specialized areas. It lists specific ratings where one person can effectively handle multiple roles, from doing the maintenance to signing it off. It seems quite pragmatic.
It is. And the related regulation, 145.A.30b, really drives home the responsibility, it states. The minimum requirement is for one full-time person who meets the Part 66 requirements for certifying staff and holds the position of accountable manager, safety manager, maintenance engineer, and is also certifying staff and, if applicable, airworthiness review staff. And critically, no other person may issue a certificate of release to service, and therefore, if that person is absent, no maintenance may be released during such absence. It also defines full-time as not less than 35 hours per week outside of vacations.
Wow, that's a huge amount of responsibility on one person's shoulders.
Immense.
They're the accountable manager, safety manager, maintenance engineer, and certifier. And that rule about no release if they're absent, that's a major safety control. The operation literally stops.
It has to. Think about a specialist shop, maybe one focusing on specific piston engines. The owner, a highly qualified Part 66 engineer, could be all those things. But if they take a holiday, no engines get released back to service until they return. It ensures every release has that single, accountable, qualified backing.
Okay, so what about audits for these one-person bands? GM1 145.A.10A1 addresses that. It says the independent audit part of compliance monitoring, that's from point 145.A.200, can be subcontracted, either to another approved Part 145 org or to a qualified individual auditor working under the organization's system, but crucially, with the competent authorities agreement.
Right. So even a one-person show needs that independent check. It's vital for objectivity. It recognizes one person can't really audit themselves effectively, so it allows subcontracting this oversight, but always with authority approval, keeps the checks and balances.
So the owner of that piston engine shop we talked about, they might hire a retired auditor or maybe another small Part 145 company to do their annual compliance checks. That maintains the independence.
Exactly. And GM1 145.A.10.2 simplifies the paperwork a bit. It refers to point 145.35, saying that for these one-person setups using an independent auditor, the usual requirement for a separate record of certifying staff is met by just submitting the MOE to the authority. Since there's only one person, their EASA Form 3 certificate is their authorization. No need for a separate list. The MOE should just include a statement reflecting this.
That makes sense. Less admin burden. The MOE and their Form 3 certificate become the authorization record. It's a practical adaptation for very small operations.
Then GM1 145.A.10a nails down the audit details. It references 145.A.206. It says it's the responsibility of that subcontracted auditor or auditing organization to do a minimum of 2 on-site audits every year. One pre-announced, one unannounced. And importantly, it's still the Part 145 organization's responsibility, the one-person org, to ensure that effective implementation of all corrective actions takes place.
2 audits a year, one announced, one surprise visit.
Okay.
That ensures they're prepared, but also gives a snapshot of normal operations. And the responsibility for fixing any issues found still rests with the organization itself, not just the auditor. Makes sense.
Precisely. So that contracted auditor, they schedule one visit, letting the engineer prepare. The second is unannounced, giving a true picture of daily compliance. If they find anything, the one-person org has to fix it and show it's fixed. Now, GM1 145.A.10b shifts focus slightly, offering a recommended operating procedure for a Part 145 organization based upon up to 10 persons involved in maintenance.
Okay, so moving from one person up to a small team of 10.
Right. It acknowledges that with more people, you need more structure, even if some roles overlap a bit.
So GM1 145.A.10 B1 refers back to 145.A.30 B and C. What's the setup here? It says the normal minimum is employment on a full-time basis of 2 persons who meet the applicable requirements for certifying staff. One is the maintenance engineer, the other the compliance monitoring engineer. Either can be the accountable manager and safety manager, provided they meet the requirements. But the maintenance engineer is the one certifying to keep the compliance monitoring engineer independent for audits. The maintenance engineer can also do airworthiness reviews for Part ML aircraft, and the compliance monitoring engineer should have similar qualifications for credibility, unless they have a strong track record in compliance monitoring, then maybe slightly reduced maintenance qualifications could be allowed. And again, if needed, the independent audit part can be arranged in the one-person setup with authority agreement.
Exactly. So this outlines a kind of 2-person core for these slightly larger, small organizations. You've got your maintenance engineer doing the work and signing off.
The certifying person.
Right. And then the compliance monitoring engineer focused on ensuring procedures are followed, audits are done, quality is maintained. The absolute key point is maintaining that independence. The person doing the work shouldn't be the main person auditing that same work.
That separation of duties really strengthens the integrity, even in a small team.
It does. Imagine a small maintenance company, maybe 7 staff. They'd likely have one very experienced engineer focused on the hands-on maintenance, issuing the certificate of release to service. The second key person, likely equally qualified, would be dedicated to compliance monitoring. They ensure procedures are followed, conduct internal audits. Even if the compliance person sometimes helps with maintenance tasks, they wouldn't sign off their own work. That maintains the separation. So, to wrap up on small organizations, the emphasis is firmly on accountability and independence. Whether it's a single person wearing multiple hats but with mandatory subcontracted audits, or a clear split between a maintenance engineer and a compliance monitoring engineer for slightly bigger teams. And that competent authority agreement is always the linchpin.
Okay, that clarifies the scope and how it applies differently based on size. Now, let's talk about actually getting approved. 145.A.15, application for an organization certificate. This is the starting gate, right?
Absolutely. This is how you formally begin the process. 145.A.15, pulling from regulation EU 2021-1963A states, an application for a certificate or an amendment shall be made in a form and manner established by the competent authority. And it adds, taking into account the applicable requirements of Annex I, Part M, Annex VB, Part ML, and this annex.
So it's not just filling out any old form. There's a specific form and manner set by your authority. And it links directly to other key rules like Part M and Part ML, shows it's all part of one integrated airworthiness system.
That's the idea. You can't just, send a casual letter saying we want Part 145 approval. The authority will have a defined application package, maybe an online system, guiding you through everything needed legally and operationally, making sure it aligns with all the relevant EASA parts.
Right. And then paragraph B of the same regulation adds a crucial requirement for initial applications. Applicants need to provide the authority with the results of a pre-audit performed by the organization against all the applicable rules and documentation demonstrating how they will comply.
Yes, that pre-audit requirement is really interesting. Why does the authority want your audit results up front? It's about you demonstrating proactive self-assessment. It shows you've deeply understood the requirements before they even start their official audit. It's proof you've done your homework and genuinely believe you're ready.
So if you're setting up a new maintenance facility, before the ESA auditor walks in, you need to have done your own really thorough internal audit. Find any gaps, show you fix them, and you submit that report along with all your manuals, procedures, staff qualifications, basically showing exactly how you plan to operate compliantly from day one.
Precisely. And AMC 145.A.15 gives us a practical tool for this. It says, an application should be made on an EASA Form 2, or an equivalent form that is acceptable to the competent authority. It also notes that this Form 2 can be used for applying for other approvals under the regulations, and organizations applying for several certificates might use a single Form 2.
Okay, so EASA Form 2, that standardizes things, makes the process smoother, and allows for efficiency if you're applying for, say, Part 145 and Part M Subpart G together.
Exactly. It simplifies the submission, assuming it's all clearly laid out. Then, AMC 2-145.A.15 gives more general advice on the application. Paragraph A emphasizes early submission. Draft documents should be submitted at the earliest opportunity so that the assessment can begin. It notes that final approval can't happen until all completed documents are received.
That's just good sense for efficiency, right? Get your draft MOE in early, let the authority start reviewing it while you finalize other things. It shows you're serious and organized and could speed things up with that back and forth feedback.
Definitely. And paragraph B links back to that pre-audit. It says the pre-audit results in your documentation help the authority determine the volume of certification and oversight work that is necessary and the locations where it will be carried out.
So your pre-audit isn't just for you, it's a planning tool for the authority too. It helps them gauge how ready you really are and tailor their own audit. If you look good on paper and in your self-assessment, maybe their initial audit can be more focused.
Potentially, yes. A thorough, compliant pre-audit might lead to a smoother, perhaps less intensive initial assessment. Conversely, lots of identified issues might signal they need a much deeper dive on site. And finally, paragraph C really clarifies the intent of that internal pre-audit. It says the intent is to ensure that the organization has internally verified its compliance. It allows the organization to show the authority how well they comply and provide assurance that the organization management system is established to a level that is sufficient to perform maintenance activities.
So it's not just ticking boxes, it's a proper internal check of your whole system, including compliance monitoring. It's your chance to prove, before the official review even starts, that you're ready to safely and effectively do the work.
That's it. Before the ESA audit, you run your own mock audit. Check everything. Tool controls, staff qualifications, how you handle nonconformities, the works. This internal review ensures your management system is real, operational, and capable.
Okay, summing up the application process. It's structured, uses specific forms like ES Form 2, and that internal pre-audit is absolutely critical. It's not just a formality. It proves your readiness and helps the authority plan, streamlining the path to getting that certificate.
Well summarized. So once you're approved, we move to 145.A.20, terms of approval and scope of work. This clarifies exactly what maintenance activities your organization is legally allowed to perform.
Right. The specifics of your approval. Paragraph A of the regulation is very direct. The organization's scope of work shall be specified in the Maintenance Organization Exposition, MOE, in accordance with Point 145.70.
Fundamental. Your MOE is, as you said earlier, the organization's Bible. It must clearly define every aspect of the work you're approved for. No ambiguity, clarity for your staff, clarity for the authority.
So your MOE would spell out, for example, approved for piston aircraft up to 5,700 kilograms, or approved for specific avionics component repairs, or maybe hydraulics. It's your official statement of what you can do.
Correct. And paragraph B reinforces this. The organization shall comply with the terms of approval attached to the organization's certificate issued by the competent authority, and with the scope of work specified in the MOE.
Dual compliance, then. You need to stick to the formal certificate and the detailed scope in your MOE. If you deviate from either, you risk non-compliance and potentially jeopardizing your approval.
Absolutely. If your certificate says Class A2 aircraft approval, but your MOE narrows that down to Cessna 172 only, you cannot then legally work on, say, a Piper PA-28, even though it's also A2, not without updating your MOE and getting that change approved first.
Okay, now AMC 1-to-145.A.20 gets really detailed, especially for component maintenance, right? It talks about Category C ratings and links them to ATA chapters.
It does. This is where it gets quite specific for component shops. The AMC provides a table identifying the ATA specification 2200 chapter for each Category C component rating. For instance, C1 is aircon and press, linked to ATA Chapter 21. C2 is auto flight, Chapter 22. C3 is comms and nav, covering Chapters 23 through 34. C5 electrical power and lights uses 24, 33, and 85. C7 engine APU covers a whole range, 49, 71 through 83.
Wow, that's a very detailed breakdown.
It is. It goes through C8 flight controls, C9 fuel, C14 landing gear, C16 propellers, C20 structural, and so on, all the way to C22 propulsion augmentation. This granular list uses the standardized ATA system, which is crucial for clarity in such a complex area. It ensures everyone understands precisely what systems and components fall under a specific C rating.
So if your organization holds a C7 engine APU rating, you know your scope covers components related to those specific ATA chapters, engine controls, ignition, exhaust, etc. That precision stops organizations working outside their approved and hopefully expert area.
Exactly that. Prevents scope creep and ensures competence. Finally, AMC 2-to-145.A.20 addresses facilities that aren't at the main base. It says, facilities such as stores, line stations, component or subcontractors' workshops that are not located together with the main facilities may be covered by the organization approval without being identified on the organization certificate. Provided, and this is key, the MOE identifies these facilities and contains procedures to control such facilities, and the competent authority is satisfied that they form an integral part of the approved maintenance organization.
That's very practical for larger organizations with multiple locations. You don't necessarily need a separate Part 145 certificate for every remote storeroom or line station outstation. But the crucial part is integration. The MOE has to list them, define the control procedures, and the authority has to agree they're properly managed as part of the main organization.
That's the core requirement. They must form an integral part, under the same management system and quality oversight. Think of a major airline's MRO division. They might have the main hangars at their hub, but also line stations scattered across other airports, maybe even a dedicated component shop elsewhere. Those remote sites don't need their own Part 145 certificate as long as they're clearly defined and controlled within the main organization's MOE, and the authority has approved that setup.
So it ensures oversight remains consistent, no matter where the work is physically done.
Precisely. So, wrapping up O.20, your Part 145 approval is tightly defined. By your certificate, yes, but in even more detail by your MOE. The scope includes the types of aircraft or components, and importantly, how you manage any distributed facilities. It ensures all your operations, main base or remote, meet the same stringent safety and quality standards.
Excellent. That gives a clear picture of scope, application, and terms of approval. Now, considering all these intricacies, the detailed scope, the application process, managing terms of approval, especially with things like remote facilities, what organizational challenge do you think is generally the hardest to manage effectively when operating a Part 145 organization across multiple non-co-located sites? Is it ensuring consistent compliance everywhere, managing the logistics, or maybe maintaining a single, unified safety culture across different teams and locations?
That's a really good question to ponder. In the next deep dive, we will cover 145.0.25 facility requirements, diving into the physical and environmental standards needed for approved maintenance.
Sounds good. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Just search for Phoenix Way Academy for more insights and updates.
Thanks for listening. Stay safe and stay informed.